Hello and welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to be talking about the major scale. It's a very, very important scale, at least in my opinion, the basis of Western music, how things are notated and written. You need to know it. There's a lot of things that you just have to memorize on guitar. This is probably one of them when you're trying to learn guitar. So let's not belabor the point. I'm going to go ahead and just run through the scale real quick and go through all the frets that you need to know for this particular scale and to get down to the exact details on what this is. So for the purpose of this video, we are going to be focusing on the A major scale. Now this is a graphic that I pulled up from Fender's website. I'll drop a link in the description. Really good thing to have. It's a C scale and it shows the intervals. We'll talk about that. But let's just go ahead and focus on this. We're starting with the root note A, right? So, hopping down to the fretboard, we're starting in A. We're going to be playing the A major scale. So this is an A chord. That's an E-shaped A chord on the 5th fret, right? And we always start our major scales with the root note. What do we mean by root note or tonic? It is the root note of the chord you're playing. So in this case, this is an A chord. The root note is an A, right? A is an A chord, so we're going to start on the A. So on the 5th fret of the E string, the low E string, that's an A. That's your your root note. We're going to hop down to the 7th fret of the E string. That's our 2nd note, right? That's a B. And then we're going to go down to the A string on the 4th fret. That's a C sharp. And then 1 fret up there to the 5th fret, that's a D. And then we're going to scoot right over to the 7th fret of the A chord, right? That's an E. And then we're going to go to the D string, 4th fret, that's an F sharp. And then we are going to go to the 6th fret of the G string. That's a G sharp. And then if we go to the 7th fret of that D string, we're back to the root. That's another A. Now what does that mean? That means we played 1 octave of the major scale. From start to finish, there's 8 notes. Root note here, root note there, and 6 in between. So we got okay, moving on up. If we want to go up 1 more octave, we start with this root here on the 7th fret of the D string. That's our A. And then we're going to go down to the G string, 4th fret. That's our B. And then we're going to hop up to the 6th fret. That's our C sharp. We're going to hop up to the 7th fret of the G string. That's our D. And then we're going to go down to the B string, 5th fret. That's an E. Then we're going to go to the 7th fret. That's an F sharp. And then we're going to go to the 4th fret of the E string. That's a G sharp. And then we're going to go up to end on that root note, the A. So all combined we have okay, so now that we have that out of the way, there are diagrams out there. I will probably go ahead and link some diagrams to the dots. I don't like the dots because this I think is more important than the dots. This column right here on this document that I'm going to show you, and link down in the description, it shows what we call intervals, right? So if we go down from the root note, you see these things called whole steps, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Those signify how the distance between one note to the next. So if we're looking at this chart, we have an A, right? That's our first root note. And then we go up a whole step, we have a B. We go up another whole step, we have a C sharp. Then we go up a half step, we have a D. What do I mean by whole step and half step? How does that translate to the guitar? Let me show you. Hop down on the fretboard. A whole step on the fretboard would be 2 frets up, right? So here's an example. If we have an A here on the E string, if we go up just 1 fret, that's a half a step, right? That's an A sharp or B flat. But if we go up a whole step from the 5th fret to the 7th fret, that is a whole step, that's a B. So we got A, B, A, B, A, B flat, B, right? Moving back up here. Okay, so we have 7 notes in the musical alphabet, right? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and everything in between them. So between an A and a B, that's a whole step, right? But between the B and the C and the E and the F, those are all half steps. So there is no B sharp, C flat, there's B, C. So there is no E sharp, there is no F flat, there's an E and an F. Those are together, right? B, C together, E and F together, right? So that means, what that means if I'm going from a B to a C, so we go to A, B, and then instead of going up a whole step to get to the C, we have to go up a half step to get the C, right? And if you look down to the fretboard here, if you're doing a C chord, your root note right here is a C. If you open it up and play the open B, just a half step down, we get the C, right? Same concept. Then up here is a D. So that's what I mean by saying B and C. And the same thing applies here to the E and the F, right? An open E string, and then you press it down, that's an F. Then a whole step up to a G. Once you get that down, things on this clipboard here will start to make sense, right? Whole step, that's 2 frets up. Half step is just 1 fret up. That's why this is so important here. That's more important to learn what the steps are and what these intervals are in the major scale than it is to know the notes or anything else, because it's very important to know the notes, don't get me wrong, but knowing the intervals is going to help you learn all the different shapes across the fretboard and all the different pentatonic patterns without having to look at dots. That's the whole point of this, building your own chords. We don't want to look at dots. We want to be able to do it up here in our brain and not have to memorize all those dots, because if you try to memorize dots and all the different shapes and patterns, you're probably going to forget it. It's going to take you forever to do. It's not fun work. It's easier to find what they call a shortcut. It's not a shortcut if you know the relationship of the scale. Now, why is this so important here? This is really important because you see here we have an A, B, C, right? That's our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Those are our 7. So if somebody says, I want to play a 1, 4, 5 in the key of A, what does that mean? That means A is the 1. What's the 4 here? The 4 is a D. So a 1, 4, 5, we're going to go from an A chord, for example, to a D, and then an E, right? And that's just an example. They might go 1, 5, 4, 6, minor, right? So you could kind of draw things out in your head or imagine things based off of these numbers. That's what those numbers mean. So if I want to say I want to go to the pentatonic scale, which is kind of paring down the major scale, it's only 5, hence the term pentagram, pentatonic. We're going to skip a couple notes when we're doing the pentatonic. And so this is why everything is so important. Knowing this scale on the fretboard is going to be pretty essential to being able to translate things into diagonal pentatonics, to even looking at your minors, because what do we do in a major scale to turn it into a minor? We might want to flatten the third. That's part of how you create a chord. Cooking chords with this recipe, and these are the ingredients to cook with. This is the framework that will definitely help you out in every single aspect of music and guitar, is learning these intervals that relate to the major scale. So let's hop down to the fretboard and I'll show you real quick again. And so here's the beauty of the whole thing. If you know the intervals, you don't have to memorize all the different patterns and shapes. At least I don't think I have to, right? So if I'm playing a D chord right here on the 5th fret, this is an A-shaped D chord, right? We know our root is here instead. So we're going to use that same set of intervals to kind of translate what the notes are for this particular shape. How do I know that without looking and memorizing dots or anything from all these diagrams we get? It's because I have the intervals memorized, and I know that wherever I am on the fretboard, I don't need to rely on memorizing different shapes and all the dots that fit into all those different shapes. I know, okay, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, all that good stuff. I know that, so I could take, the D shape or the C shape of a chord and find the root. As long as you know what the root is, you could take the same intervals and apply them across the board. It is so valuable. I highly, highly recommend it's to learn this thing. If there's anything you're going to memorize, I know we all know the minor pentatonic scale. Everybody knows that one. That's the first scale that everybody knows. But make the next one the major scale, please, because the minor scale is a derivative off of a version of the major scale, right? They're flattening things here and doing different things to the intervals to turn it into it. So the base framework, in my opinion, is the major scale. Please learn it. So I hope that was valuable to you. I know this is back to basics as far as the beginning, but I felt like it was something that I need to stress, at least on my channel. It's evergreen content, but I need to stress it because a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be putting up is based off of saying, hey, we got the 1 here, we got the 3 here, we're going to flatten the 3rd here, which can be pretty useless unless you know what those numbers mean in context. And the context that I'm trying to show you here is that major scale. It's the base context of or the majority of things that you're probably going to be learning when you're starting to play guitar or any instrument for that matter. So anyway, I hope that helped, and I hope you got something out of it. And if you like what you saw, please subscribe, and I will see you later. That was smooth.